forward on this. And then Christie, it's all yours. Take it away.
All right. Well, I decided to do it on this Tuesdays with CKLS on Banned Book Week, because when I was a librarian in St. John, I was promoting it, and I had a teacher say, why in the world would I want to promote banned books? And so I thought I'd talk about censorship and the history behind this, and then maybe we can all have a conversation about banned books. So this year the theme is Censorship Leaves Us in the Dark, Keep the Light On. And when looking at the AASL ALA page, I like the way they said, we're looking at the light of learning. We don't want that to be extinguished. And libraries and schools and bookstores, we're the ones that keep the light on and the intellectual freedom flame burning. And maybe you didn't know that was part of your job, but that's part of what we're going to talk about today. We want that warm glow that invites people to seek knowledge and perspectives. And I think we'd all be better for it. So, a little bit about the history. We started talking about banned books in the 1980s. There seemed to be a real surge of books being banned or challenged. And there was one particular case we'll talk about, but it really kind of caught on because at the 1982 American Booksellers Association Book Expo, they set up a very visual display of huge padlocked metal cages with 500 challenged books stacked inside, and a large sign that said, this could be very dangerous. Books can be very dangerous. And that got the wheels turning of several organizations, ALA being one of them, and the American Booksellers Association, and they teamed up with some college stores as well. And so that first banned book week was in 1982. Institutions, stores all held readouts. There were window displays of literary graveyards or brown bag books, so you didn't know what they were. And mayors and governors started jumping on the bandwagon. So that's a little bit about how Banned Book Week came about. And the fear and the concern came with censorship, because people were removing books from shelves. They were hiding resources, burning books, destroying resources. Schools were asking for permission forms so students had access to content. And that's not what we're about. We're about sharing information, supporting the freedom to seek and to express ideas, even if they're considered unpopular or unorthodox. So the First Amendment, you know, I told you about that, that one case. It came down to the Supreme Court considering whether a local school board violated the Constitution by removing books from a school library. And what the Supreme Court said was the right to receive ideas is a necessary predicate to the recipient's meaningful exercise of his own rights of speech, press, and political freedom. the First Amendment. So school officials were told you cannot pull books off library shelves simply because you dislike the ideas that are in those books. It was the Board of Education versus PICO, and the Supreme Court ruled that school officials in New York violated that First Amendment by removing several books from a junior high school, a high school library, because it was just too controversial. The court said that the First Amendment protects students' rights to receive information and ideas, and that the main place for this kind of information is in a library. But the Supreme Court also said that school officials could remove books from the library shelves if they were pervasively vulgar, and they weren't interfering in a school official's control over the curriculum or even buying books. But that's how it was listed. So, challenged versus banned. Has anybody had a book challenged or banned in your library? Hoisington says we have. There's a difference between a challenge and a ban. A challenge isn't just a complaint about the book, but it's a formal attempt to remove or restrict materials or the services that they're based on content. It is going to be a written call to action on, it could even be a written call to action on social media. Banning materials is just removing them completely based on content. Usually, if you're lucky, you've got a committee, an administrator or staff member, maybe that helps you make that decision. Amy says years ago, it wasn't a book, but a movie. And Melissa said it was when we started buying graphic novels. It had the kids depicted smoking cigarettes, and they were very detailed nude pictures in it as well. So Melissa, why don't you chime in here? What was the process, and was the book left on the shelves or was it removed? You said it was in our YA section, but the board wasn't having it. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. Why would you want to fight to have a challenged or a banned book stay in your library? Most of the time, when it's being asked to be removed, the why is they wish to shield themselves and family from ideas that they find offensive or inappropriate. But as a librarian and a defender of the First Amendment and freedom of speech and freedom to choose, shielding everyone from different views is not the way we want to go. That just spreads distrust and fear and ignorance. School librarians are kind of in a different position. You're working with a school board and parents, and we can always support a reader's right to choose for themselves and their family. Melissa says, It went before our entire board and the amendment was discussed. It was eventually taken off the shelf, but not out of the catalog. We did not know it had that kind of content when we purchased it, and we didn't scrutinize it when we were processing it. And there's a way to protect yourself from getting into that position. You want to choose books, select books that have reviews and good reasons for having it in your library. And then you can always pull out those reviews and say, well, this is why, even though it has these things that are objective or people may object to, it's still very good because of this. I have that picture of Skippy John Jones because on this year's list, he became notorious. He was challenged. And it'll be interesting to see what that was about. Some of the reasons here lately, a lot of them are the LGBT, transgender, different kinds of on this list, this year's list. That was a big reason for the censorship. But you can see from this graphic, I mean, it's anti-cop, same-sex marriage, white supremacy, religious viewpoints. Someone may decide dirty magazines, teen suicide. There's a lot of reasons that books are challenged. And you can have your personal opinion, but as a librarian, it's really your job to defend any book that is on your shelf. And books are not the only thing that are being challenged now. Sometimes programs, I don't know if you've heard all the hoopla over drag queen story times. They've been trying a lot to get those stopped. And meeting rooms, who uses those meeting rooms and for what? You know, a lot of political angst. People may say, well, if they're going to get to use the meeting room, then we have to use the meeting room. And you have to have a policy set up so that you can address those concerns. So before we look at this year's list from ALA, I thought it might be interesting. I found a few quotes from different authors on what they felt about their book that was challenged. In Philip Pullman's Dark Materials series, he was number 8 on the top 100 challenged books from 2000 to 2009. The Catholic League campaigned against the Golden Compass, declaring it promoted atheism and attacked Christianity in the Catholic Church in particular. It grapples with lots of questions about philosophy and science, and a lot of controversy over its critical eye toward religion. In numerous speeches, Pullman described himself as an atheist or agnostic atheist, but he maintained that his books were more about the dangers of a real rigid theological doctrine and institution, that they weren't meant to be anti-God or anti-faith. And it was more about storytelling with a moral. Thou shalt not might reach the head, but it takes once upon a time to reach the heart, was one of his quotes. And do you guys have the Golden Compass in your libraries? I'll bet a lot of you do in the YA section. Another one that's very controversial is And Tango Makes Three. It was written by Parnell and Richardson. An illustrated children's book that tells the true story of Roy and Silo, two male penguins at the New York Central Park Zoo that built a nest together and took turns brooding the egg and raised Tango, a female chick that had hatched. It was published in 2005. It got starred reviews in the School Library Journal and Book List and Publishers Weekly. It was a notable children's book and the Nick Jr. Family Magazine Best Book of the Year. But because of the same-sex parents, it was not popular, and a lot of them may not have banned it, but they moved it from the children's section to the adults and restricted to adults only. It was pulled from several elementary schools, but a lot of them were defeated, ensuring that the book is still in circulation. But Tango Makes Three has appeared on the list a whopping 8 times in 2017, 14, 12, 10, 9, 8, 7, and 6. It's deemed unsuited to the age group and anti-family. And some of them tried anti-ethnic. And I'll bet quite a few of us have this book on our shelves as well. Of course, the Harry Potter books, we know just weeks ago that a Salt Lake City Catholic school had it removed. They banned it. No, it was Nashville, banned it. And their reasoning was, if it's read by a human being, you're risking conjuring evil spirits because the spells in the books were real. It was the St. Edward's Catholic School Parish. The letter was sent to the parents, and this pastor explained that in the email he had consulted several exorcists in the US and Rome, and they had recommended that the book be banned. Now, J.K. Rowling, in response to this, said, well, a very famous writer once said, a book is like a mirror. If a fool looks in, you can't expect a genius to look out. And she just thought her books were very moral and really couldn't help out these people if that's what they thought. And the last one I have, no, the second to the last. Kurt Vonnegut, this is in regards to his book, Slaughterhouse-Five, and I know high schools were using this for a long, long time in class, and it was something everybody had to read. And I didn't really remember reading it, so I looked up what it was about. It's about Billy Pilgrim, a man who's has become unstuck in time, weaves together different periods of his life. His time as a hapless soldier, his post-war optometry career, and then a foray in an alien zoo where he served as an exhibit with humor and profundity. It was loosely based on his experiences in the war, and boy, the reviews that I found were it was depraved, immoral, psychotic, vulgar, and anti-Christian. And in 1973 in North Dakota took 32 of their books for class and put it in the school's coal burner. A Missouri school board banned his novel. And this is a book that contains so much profane language it would make a sailor blush with shame. The F word is plastered on almost every other page. The content ranges from naked men and women in cages together so that they can watch them having sex, to God telling people that they better not mess with his loser bum of a son named Jesus Christ. And they removed it completely. And I was like, my goodness, why would we want a book like that on our shelves? And what makes Slaughterhouse-Five a classic? And I looked up, and maybe I can post this, but it was interesting. It was a real portrayal of a man coming back from war and what happens to your mind. And back in the 70s, it wasn't PTSD, but now people are recognizing that his descriptions were very spot on of a soldier coming back from war, and how the mind works, and that's why it's considered a classic. And I would guess, I don't know if it's still on the shelves in high school libraries or not. It would be interesting to hear. The last one I have is The Land by Mildred D. Taylor. And this is about the son of a prosperous landowner, a former slave, Paul Edward Logan. And he's unlike any other boys he knows. His white father has acknowledged him and raised him openly, just something that was unusual in post-Civil War Georgia. But as he grows into a man, he learns that life for someone like him isn't easy. Black people distrust him because he looks white. White people discriminate against him when they learn his Black heritage. And so he faces all kinds of betrayal and degradation. At 14, he decides he's going to set out toward the only dream he's ever had, and to find every bit of good as his father and make the land his own. And I thought this was really a wonderful look that Mildred Taylor, as she looked at her book, although there are those who wish to ban my books because it has language that is painful. She chose that language that was spoken during the period because she didn't want to whitewash the history. The language is painful, and the life was painful for many African Americans, including her family, and she remembers that pain. And I know Huckleberry Finn and some classics like that have been banned or challenged because of the language, just like she's talking to. And that's a really good reason, I believe, to keep the book on the shelf.
We do have one comment. Melissa from Hoisington says, we don't have a high school library, so there's that, as to your question of whether the high school library has Slaughterhouse-Five.
Exactly. It's nice that your public library can pick up and help out those high school kids, hopefully, find some good books. So, this is all very sensational, the reasons that the books are banned. And I think I'm going to go ahead and show the PowerPoint. Hold on a minute. I need...
You get it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I couldn't find the link. I thought I had it down there on the bottom. Okay. These are the 11 books that were targeted with censorship attempts in libraries this year, past year, 2018, excuse me. Okay. I guess it's going to take its time. Okay, number 11 and 10. Two Boys Kissing and This Day in June. And because of the LGBT, The Absolutely True Diary of Part-Time Indian, for profanity, sexual references. Here's our Skippy John Jones. Someone felt that it depicted stereotypes. And This One Summer, for profanity, sexual references, and some of the illustrations. And 13 Reasons Why, for addressing teen suicide. And I know that was a very popular book with our kids. Drama, LGBTQIA characters and themes. And I guess we got to think about, why are so many of these books coming out? The Hate You Give had raving reviews, but profanity, drug use, sexual references, anti-cop. Oh, and poor old Captain Underpants. I guess there's a same-sex couple in that, but mostly disruptive behavior. A Day in the Life of Marlon Bundo. Again, the LGBTQIA content and political and religious viewpoints. And the number one was George. And we just had, with the William Allen White, that conversation for including a transgender character.
We do have some comments. Melissa from Hoisington says, we have several of these, maybe even most of them. And my daughter really loves The Hate You Give. She's 16. That's on my to-read list. I haven't got to it yet. And a lot of these are ones that if I haven't read yet, they're on my to-read list.
Yeah, it was a really good book. And so I'm going to stop this one, hopefully. Okay, Mary Beth, how do I get this? Guess I could do this. Back to my PowerPoint, maybe. What if I do that? There, I just put it over the top.
All right, but it hasn't stopped it there.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There it goes. There it goes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, let's talk about some of those books and you know, how do you handle it? We'll talk about some programming and activities. I think the route to take would be kind of veer away from the sensationalism of, I mean, what kid is going to want Skippy John Jones banned from his, you know, from his library? It's more about our freedom of choice to listen, to read, and think the ideas that we want to think, and read what we want to read.
There's a comment, our high school English used The Hate You Give for a lesson, and the teacher had to send out letters to let parents be aware of the content.
And You'll find that in a lot of schools. They're going to take the safe route. And if someone opts out, then the English teacher needs to usually come up with another book that they can read and discuss with them. We don't really want to defend the books that have been challenged, but we want to celebrate the freedom to read them. And, if your daughter loves The Hate You Give and some parent comes in and wants it pulled off, how are you going to feel? And it's a librarian, a school, a bookstore owner. It's our job to defend that right to read what a kid wants to read. And there is the Library Bill of Rights that I have put all of these resources on a LibGuide for the school library, and I'll show that to you. But do you think you have the tools, or do you have a reconsideration policy if someone comes in and wants a book removed? In St. John, I had a parent come in, and there's a series about dust bunnies, and she just thought that was a waste of our money, the taxpayer money, to be putting those on the shelf. And really, after letting her talk, that's all she wanted, was just to air out her frustration that this is what we were buying.
And then there's a comment, there are many books which I don't care for, and as a parent I can determine what my littles read, but that's the parent's job, not the librarian's.
Exactly.
And I would add, when I was first a librarian, when I first started out, my grandparents checked out a book for me to support the granddaughter, and it was Fried Green Tomatoes, or Tales from Fried Green Tomatoes, and they didn't like the cussing in it. And they wanted it removed, and I just looked at them and go, you have a right to choose what you want to read, but you don't have a right to tell others what they can read. And when I stated it like that, they kind of got it, and they didn't press it any further. So.
And when you have one of these policies, and I do have some examples that I'll share, it gives you a step-by-step way to handle it. It takes the decision out of your hands, because most of the time you have a committee that looks at the book, they'll read it, they'll look at what the person is unhappy about, and then make a decision for you. And I had, in St. John, we were both a public and school library. And I had a parent come in, and she was unhappy. We had the Guns magazine. Her son was bringing it home, and it was alarming, and she wanted it pulled out of the library. So we talked about it, and I said, well, there's just so many people that really enjoy that magazine. She said, I still don't think, high school kids need access to that. So she went ahead and filled out the form that I'll show you. And our superintendent, we had teachers, a student, we had 2 or 3 community people, and they all take a look at the problem with it. And I am there to show the reviews of, why this is an okay thing, and this is why I chose it, and just give some of the background on it. And then it's in their hands. And we will share some of those book policies on my LibGuide. You'll be able to look at some. Are any of you doing any programming about band books? Sometimes it can be that passive programming. I really like the idea of taking a band book and shredding it and seeing if they can figure out what book it is. Or just a bulletin board with words have power and displaying a few of them.
Erica from Kensington says that they usually do have some kind of band books programming.
Diane showed me, and we've got this link, the wanted posters of different band books. There's a link from Alexandria that has all of these posters. You can see the Diary of Anne Frank, Harry Potter books. There's a whole stack of them here. That just displaying them might start a conversation. There is another, from the ALA site, there's a band book author letter writing campaign. And let me see if I can get to it. Oh, wrong one.
While you're looking for that, Christy, I will say that Erica says that she displays the books and wrapped band tape around them for her band books.
And you can get that tape from Demco, I think. Okay, I've got started a list here of resources. There are several webinars coming up, picture books and challenges dealing with controversial topics. That's at no cost. It's by the ALA YouTube. All of these are at no cost. Then there's a couple here in September, Ask Me Anything About Censorship and Banned Books 101. I've got the Library Bill of Rights and some other free downloads. The Banned Book Week wanted posters by Alexandria are here. But the banned book author letter writing is, I would think, a great thing to team up with the social studies teacher and an English teacher. And what this is that the kids are encouraged to, after reading one of the books, tweet the author or write a letter and of the authors and share their, what the book meant to them and why, they would not want that banned from their library. The goals, just to raise awareness of books that are threatened with censorship and to be able to support the authors. But another good thing would be a discussion about this. And, sometimes that's hard to handle. But I have, do you guys remember All Sides that came several years ago to the spring thing in Salina?
I think so, yeah.
They have this website that has classroom activities and tools to teach the kids how to talk and disagree. I just love that. Critical thinking, activities to practice skills. I mean, it would be such a terrific unit in the schools to work together with some, collaborate with some other teachers. And there's also lesson plans, and these how to have this conversation. You know, you build a relationship with the person you're going to talk to. You be careful about the words you're using, and you understand freedom of speech, and that there are media biases. And so one of the things that they do is they show the right, the center, and the left of the topic that's controversial. And it's just a great place to start. If they want extra, I guess they have livingroomconversations.org, and that gives some of the lesson plans there too. So I'd really encourage you. I mean, that's what banned book is the controversy over books. And they actually do have, there was some place I plugged in banned books, and there was discussions about that as well. And I'll look for that, and if I can't, I'll get it up on this page as well. We've already made it to a little after 2. Is there anything you guys would like to say about banned books or have questions about, or anything I can help you?
There's one more comment. Like the opposing viewpoints books we used to have in the nonfiction section, All Sides is the 21st version of those books.
That's right. Well, if you go to the CKLS webpage and look for the lib guides.
Thank you, yes.
And just click on for school libraries. It's the first tab. These are the PowerPoints. Why we celebrate Banned Book Week is the one I just had, and with some of the resources. And then the banned books from ALA, they're underneath this. And then we talked about the selection and reconsideration policies. I will put some more up that are general and not school. But ALA has some good criteria to make sure that you put you get the right information in these policies. And then the other ones are just really good samples. I think this one, it talked about, why you choose books and who is responsible, and then the criteria for your books. They included the library Bill of Rights and access to resources for schools. And then they get to the objections. And here's the procedure for reconsidering. They've just got a little map. This is how it's going to happen. And I noticed that for the school, it was approved by the school board. So that might be a step you'll have to take if you're with the schools. And the other one it is similar to that in just a little bit different format. But if there's anything I can help you with, if you're not finding the things you need to have this discussion, I don't know, elementary schools, I usually did it with junior high and up, but there's children's books on the list. So, if you display those, you may have questions about those and why. And it might just be a good way to talk about your freedom of speech. So I'm going to stop talking now. And you guys, let me know, if this is helpful, and if you need any other information, I'll get to digging for you.
Yeah, and I did record this session. It will be sent out as an archive with links to all the resources that Christie was talking about. Christie, I'm going to see if I can take over sharing for a minute and just show them again where to find that resource guide.
Okay.
Let's see if it'll let me share. Will it let me? I don't know if it will. Okay, there we go. So here is, can you see my screen?
I still see the LibGuide.
All right, can you maybe, let me
Let me
do
go
that.
back.
Now can you see
There
my
we
screen?
are. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is the CKLS website. The LibGuides or resource guides, whichever way you prefer to call them. LibGuides is the brand name. Is on the homepage. If you just scroll down, there'll be a list of all the ones that we've already created. There are more in the works. So we have the executive board resources for the executive board meetings, all those things that Gail sends out. Archives of all our workshops with handouts are found here. And you can also find the resource guides under information, CKLS resource guides. And I put one for trustees as a shortcut and one for the archives. But if you just click on that one link, it'll get you to all of the resource guides that we have available for you right there. Are there any other questions? I see one in the chat. Let me pull it up. Is there a list somewhere of all previously banned books?
The ALA webpage, and I've got a link to that.
Okay.
And on this webpage under webinars, websites, and such.
Okay. I'm just going to do a quick Google search or DuckDuckGo search and see what comes up just on the top. There's frequently challenged books on ALA, and there's also the banned books linked directly there. There you have the top 10 most challenged, which is what Christie showed you, frequently challenged, all that kind of information is there as well. Okay. All right. Are there any other questions? I'll give you a few minutes to type it in chat. You can always unmute your mic if you have one and just ask, but either way is up to you.
Well, have a good rest of the week.
Yep, and I will get this posted and sent out as soon as I can. Thank you, everybody. Have a good afternoon.